We are Group A and we would be discussing our findings for Hugot S&T activity. The first part is about the definitions of science that we were able to identify as a group. The second part is our individual experiences with science and technology. And the last part is the exemplifications of the definitions of science that we observed in our society. The first definition of science we determined is from Robert Pirsig's on scientific method. In this article, there is an emphasis on the need to find a logical conclusion in order to find solutions to our problems in our everyday life. That's where science comes in the picture. Science is the search for a logical explanation of a phenomena that we cannot understand, and only through following the guidance of the scientific method that we can draw inferences to answer our problems. Pirsig states that the real purpose of the scientific method is to make sure that nature hasn't misled us into believing in what we can't really understand, which is similar to one of the definitions of science in the Supreme Task, reality, truth, and scientific method. That science is the pursuit of knowledge and understanding of the natural and social world following a systematic methodology based on evidence. Through following the scientific method, which is the statement of the problem, creating a hypothesis, testing your hypothesis to experimentation, gathering data, and interpreting your data to make inferences is how we expand our knowledge. Because through science and following the formal guidance of the scientific method is where we can truly understand how our world works, and we wouldn't just blindly accept information that are given to us, but rather trust in the evidence through data that we collected in our experiments.
From Carl Sagan's Can We Know the Universe, our team has collected three definitions of science. One, that science aims to find out how the world works. Two, that science is based on experiment. And three, that science is a way of thinking. Coming from a STEM-inclined course, this is the reason why we have lab classes, to make sense of what we know from lecture classes. In lecture classes, we also get a chance to study the history and evolution of the knowledge or theory that we currently use. In here, we see that the theories and understandings that we have of certain things right now aren't exactly the same things that scientists in the past had. The reason for this is that our knowledge and understanding of certain things constantly develop over time. We get to understand things on a deeper level and clearer since we have scientists who are courageous enough to challenge the old dogma and patiently go through the series of experiments. This is also the reason why we have theses, to learn more about the current specialization that we have, to integrate it with other fields of study, and to also improve previous experiments or studies that previous scientists or fellow students conducted.
According to Bagot's supreme tasks, reality, truth, and the scientific method, we must look towards science to answer our questions regarding building the gaps between reality, our perception, and the means in which we measure both of those things. Simply put, we must look towards the science to answer our questions regarding how the world works and why the world works that way. Science as a method is composed of three different things. One, establishing hard facts about a certain empirical reality. Second is creating abstract theories to accommodate those hard facts. And last is creating methods to test those theories to determine the truth between those things. Bagot also states that although science prides itself in its detachment and rigor, scientists are still humans. Therefore, they can be tempted to cheat or ignore some findings that they have in cases wherein those things do not fit in the narrative or the reality that they are trying to form. However, this is also countered by the fact that since science is continuously retested, verified, and analyzed, any past mistakes or deliberate wrongdoings by previous scientists are eventually found out and corrected, since science itself is continuously trying to correct our perception of how things are and what things really are.
The next part of our presentation will talk about our personal experiences with science and technology. Science is a pursuit for knowledge which seeks to understand the phenomena occurring in the world we are living in. It places heavy emphasis on experimentation and research, and the data gathered from testing and proving hypotheses allows us to arrive at a conclusion which we can use to make informed decisions. Due to its objective nature, science is often considered rigid. However, there is also art in science. Art can be incorporated into science to help us better understand how the world we are living in works and operates. Hence, despite being cold and calculating by nature, science can still be a fascinating topic to learn. However, we have also had negative experiences with science. Due to its rigidity and objectivity, it often lacks a humanistic approach. The scientific field is also extremely competitive, especially those majoring in STEM-related courses. But overall, we have a rich experience when it comes to science. Science is present in almost every aspect of our lives. Being surrounded by science and technology makes science interwoven into our lives, affecting and influencing us. Thus, we have learned to make decisions considering science and the effect it has on our lives. For instance, when electing leaders, it is important to ensure that they are knowledgeable on science, that they too will make informed decisions based on facts and data for the benefit and betterment of society. As a response to the pandemic, vaccines were developed by different pharmaceutical companies. The World Health Organization states that the COVID vaccine, like all other vaccines, went through extensive and rigorous testing to ensure that it is not only effective but also safe. As such, the vaccines had to undergo a series of tests and experiments to verify their safety and efficacy. This process is similar to that of the scientific method as mentioned by Pirsig, which requires experimentation and analysis of data to arrive at the conclusion.
When the COVID-19 outbreak spread all over the world, scientists and experts were quick to start conducting research and studies on how to develop a vaccine that can fight the virus or make us, humans, immune to it. The names Moderna, BioNTech, Pfizer, and AstraZeneca became the talk of the world as they are one of the pioneers of COVID-19 vaccine development. However, in the late 2020s, a debate regarding patents arose when India and South Africa proposed to put a waiver on COVID-19 vaccine patents, at least until the world achieved herd immunity. These countries, as well as the supporters of the proposal, believe that waiving patents would allow for faster manufacturing of vaccines. However, this is frowned upon by US and other EU countries like Germany, because according to them, waiving patents will not address the slow vaccine distribution, and it will only remove the incentives for vaccine developers. They also added that the profit from the patents is important as it will allow for technological breakthroughs in vaccine development. This just shows that even in the middle of a health crisis, science discoveries are still being used for profit more than implementing it for the greater good.
Another application of science in society or lack thereof is our pandemic response. To quote Robert Pirsig's on scientific method, the physical labor is the smallest and easiest part of what a mechanic does. By far the greatest part of his work is careful observation and precise thinking. However, when it comes to our country's pandemic response, the emphasis on manpower and machineries is very clear. Hapal states that the government relied heavily on the police and the military to ensure that order was maintained and that all health protocols were followed, to which scientists regarded as draconian, militarized, and police-centric. For us mere observers, the downside of this is very clear. There is inefficient allocation of our scarce resources. Hence, the failed attempt to reduce the number of active cases and minimize our economic loss. Another contributing factor to the administration's so-so pandemic response is their failure to step back from Duterte's populistic tendencies, consistent with his authoritarian branding. This is very far from Bagot's mention of the Copernican principle wherein he states, "Science works best when we remove us as the primary objective and purpose of the equation of reality. Personally, I believe that it is time we hand the mic to actual scientists. Only then can we have a mass-oriented, scientific-based pandemic response.
One of the biggest challenges in this digital era is the spread of fake news. Just like on vaccines, many scientists have been doing their best to share their studies and research about COVID and the vaccine. However, there are still some people who believe in false information about COVID 19. Many factors became the reasons as to why this happens, and surprisingly, one of these is people's curiosity. In a research conducted by Associate Professor Mark Alfano, it was found that the majority of the participants are curious. However, while they are open to new information, they do not pay much attention in asserting the trustworthiness of their sources. This is dangerous, as they put themselves at a risk of misinformation. Moreover, it was also found that a common thing for people who accept misinformation are people who are extremely reluctant in changing their minds once they jump to their own conclusion. This is why it is important for scientists and experts to have their studies and research more relatable and accessible to the masses to prove that they are trustworthy enough for people to believe in. Alfano also concluded that they need to prove that they are trustworthy because once people have lost trust, it will almost be impossible to persuade the people.
Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk are well known billionaires, better known for the companies that they own, Amazon and Tesla, respectively. However, what you may not know is that they also own an aerospace company, Blue Origins for Bezos and SpaceX for Elon Musk. Blue Origin and SpaceX have similar goals, and that is to develop a technology that will allow space travel to be cheap and accessible to everyone on Earth. However, SpaceX takes that goal a step further by aiming to someday colonize Mars. As companies founded back in the early 2000s, they have already accomplished multiple projects and milestones. Although personally, I believe that Blue Origin lags a bit in terms of achievements when compared to what SpaceX has done. If you've been following SpaceX, you might have already heard of the Falcon rocket launches, or even the Tesla Roadster they sent out to space. SpaceX has done a lot of crazy and impressive projects in the past decade, and there sure is a lot more to expect from them. Currently, SpaceX is engaged in multiple projects. To name a few, Starlink and Starship. If you are unfamiliar with these, Starlink is a service oriented project by SpaceX. It is a service that would provide internet service globally via orbiting satellites. Multiple of these Starlink satellites have already been deployed during the Falcon rocket launches. Currently, 100,000 users have already subscribed to Starlink. However, there are only select regions where this service is available. SpaceX plans to expand on this in the near future. Starship, on the other hand, sounds like what is called like. It is a fully reusable transportation system that will shuttle people and cargo to and from Earth, the Moon, Mars, and possibly beyond. Another thing to note about Starlink is that this was the shuttle chosen by NASA to ferry civilian astronauts from lunar orbit to the moon's surface for the Artemis project. If you want to know more about these, especially the NASA's Artemis program, I'd recommend that you Google what it is all about. Although capitalism sure has its flaws, like allowing a single entity to amass tantamount amount of wealth, having a competition between two tech companies is a healthy way to make the development of technology go faster. Who knows, maybe in a few more decades we could see that the moon is already being colonized by people.